Fat, lazy, and stupid. That's the middle-aged dad archetype. Ever since Homer Simpson, right up until now with Daddy Pig. That is what is promoted to our kids. And subconsciously, we accept that as the standard. And back in January 8th, 2024, I featured in the Irish Independent. Big newspaper here in Ireland, 3-page spread. And I had to be honest with them. I said, Peppa Pig, The Simpsons, Family Guy. In all of those, the dad is fat and stupid. That's the theme. Fat, stupid, and lazy. Make no mistake about it. We are being conditioned, but we're also being targeted. And I'll prove that in a moment. It is a minefield. It is a battle. And in that battle, you need to orientate yourself. That's the first step. So if you haven't done so already, take the scorecard. Link is below and in the pinned comment. Only takes a few minutes and you'll get instant clarity. For example, Andy here, who worked with me, 8 kilo down in 3 months and gained muscle. This is really important because we are told weight loss. You need weight loss. And I'll get into GLP-1s in a second. No. Fat loss is what we need and muscle gain. It's not a joke, the dad bod. Right? Whenever you see Homer Simpson, Peter Griffin, Daddy Pig, fat, lazy, stupid, but funny. But we're laughing at them, not with them. And people think it's harmless, but it's the opposite. Because it used to be the dad was the strong, silent type, very capable, the head of the family, if you will. And now that's not the case. He's just another child that needs to be minded by the mum. Right? So someone who cannot control their impulses, on the screen all the time, overweight, they are the ideal customer, right, for the people that are targeting us. So getting lean is the biggest fuck you to the corporate media. Because you are still feeling the urges, the temptations, but you're not acting upon them. Right, stay with me. It will piss you off when you learn this. And in fact, I think if you watch this video, you may never need to listen to me again because you'll be so motivated intrinsically. It's not about the abs. You see, weight loss is a vanity metric. It doesn't tell us much. Like, you can lose weight. If you cut a leg off, you'll lose weight, right? But you won't feel or look good. If you take GLP-1s, you lose weight, but you won't feel and you certainly won't look good. That is a oversimplified approach. We want low fat, high muscle. We don't want to be a smaller, softer version of ourselves. Because you can say, all right, I want to be like this, I want to look like this, but you need to look after the engine. So are you putting in goodies, treats, or are you putting in fuel? We're living up to that low expectation of the man-child. For example, if you've got a toddler, I have 2 of them at the moment, there's always that debate. If I do this, can I have ice cream? If I do that, can I have ice cream? And it's a hard one to manage. I've got 3 kids under 5. But that's a child. You're a man. So you can't think to yourself, if I do this, I'll get my treat. But and you'll see why this is so hard in a moment, right? Let's look at the business model and where we are right now. So it is July 8th, 2026. We're in the last 16 of the World Cup. Hydration breaks. I'm sure you know what they are by now. That was never a thing in football. This is a new American thing, right? American culture equals American diseases. So, and if you're American watching this, you know yourself, America used to be a really healthy country, but we'll get into that in a second, why that's not the case anymore. And England, Ireland, everywhere else is following the same, so you're not alone. Hydration breaks are just excuses for advertising or commercials. And guess who the biggest food and beverage sponsors are for this World Cup? And when I say World Cup, I mean the best athletes in the world, right, playing at the highest level. These guys, their body is their temple. It's not a garbage disposal unit, whatever you call it in America, right? The food and beverage suppliers and sponsors are McDonald's, and Coca-Cola. So not only is the issue who is got their clause in this, but how they're doing it. They know that 70% of the audience is male, right? If you're watching this, you're likely male as well. They also know the average age in US of a viewer is 42 and a half. In England, it's 44. So if you're in your 40s and you're male, they know, right, I need to market to you. So what do you think they're doing, McDonald's? Are they doing contemporary stuff? No, they're using Beckham, they're using Ronaldinho. Right? These are footballers from back in the 90s that are big in my day. Right? They know that this appeals to your sense of nostalgia. And they even have collect these 1990 themed collectible cups. Right? You can get 7 of them or something, but it's all like limited edition, nostalgic things that remind you of back in the day when you were growing up playing football or liked football. So they're completely manipulating you at every break to get a McDonald's, get a Coca-Cola, give in to your urges. But the more time you spend on your screen, which is higher now than ever, especially social media, the more you're in that cycle. Now, to be clear on this, social media, YouTube is not social media. And on YouTube, I've just turned off my shorts. So I can't view shorts. I've disabled them. I can only see long form like this. I have no Instagram on my phone, no TikTok, no LinkedIn, no Facebook. None of that is on my phone. It's all deleted off. Because especially if a man, I don't care if you're married, and this is something controversial to say, but if you see a half-naked bird on your Instagram, it's just a flash, it throws you off. You're like, what was I doing? You know, you get all distracted. It also warps your expectations of what a woman should be like or is like. It's get them off your phone, right? All of them. Now, if you don't have a problem, if you find that you check your screen time, if you're under, say, an hour, 2 hours a day, maybe you don't need to. But if you're a married man, what are you doing on Instagram? Unpopular opinion, but I have Instagram on my desktop because it's for my business, right? Personal training online. That's what I do for a living. But I don't have it on my phone. But if your business income doesn't rely on social media, why have you got TikTok and Instagram on your phone? I don't get it. Like, it's just a distraction. So not only are the mechanisms there to keep you addicted through the apps, and this goes for food delivery apps as well, but also the food itself is engineered. Right? For example, they did this study. It's called the Kevin Hall's trial, right? Where they took the same people, 2 diets, they matched the calories, they matched the fat, they matched the sugar, the fiber, the carbs. The only difference was one group of people ate whole foods, the other group of people ate processed, ultra processed foods. And the results were that the people eating the UPFs, the ultra processed foods, ate almost 1,000 calories more a day. So when personal trainers say online, oh, it's just calories in, calories out. But if you're getting the calories to the wrong place, you're going to be constantly craving the extra ultra processed foods. It's not that simple. Sorry, it is simple, but it's not that easy. Now, so not only has it been engineered to keep you addicted through the taste, but also the texture and even the sound, which I'll tell you about in a second. So if you look at Doritos, right, they spent over a century engineering foods that you can't stop eating. And they even use AI to do so, right? To figure out what's the ideal shape of the food, what's the ideal mouth feel. That is actually a term, mouth feel. Cheesecake, for example, you have the crunchy base and you have the creamy, thick, often cold top. These 2 textures are very rare in nature. And this high sugar, high fat is also very rare in nature, which means that we can't stop eating it. So this is why 70% of the food supply in the US comes from ultra processed foods, 70%. And whenever you see things like protein, high in protein on a food or healthy looking packaging, that is the Trojan horse. Right? Because you've got protein Doritos. they mislead you into thinking that is healthy. Generally speaking, if food comes in a tin, a packet, whatever, it's not good, right? It should come from an aisle or a butcher, as in like fresh fruit or veg. But Pringles, once you pop, you can't stop. Absolutely, that's how they've been engineered, right? And then if you see them at a party or they're in the house, it's very hard to have one and call it a day. But what's really strange is if you take a potato, a boiled potato, that food, singular food, has one of the highest satiety rates of any food. In other words, it satisfies you very quickly. I challenge you to overeat boiled potatoes, because what will happen is you'll eat enough because it has fiber in it and water in it. You'll eat enough to fill you up, and your body knows when it's had enough for the required calories, and that's why it stops eating it. But this is not the same as this highly palatable ultra processed foods that are made from potatoes. And in fact, Doritos is not even potatoes, it's made from a powder. And the shape has been engineered so that when you put it on your tongue, it fits nicely, it melts very easy, so there's minimal chewing involved. And even this is why chewing is a lost art. Like, there's a book called Jaws, right? Not the shark, but about our actual jaws. And it examines how our jaws have become weaker and weaker over time because we don't chew our food, because we're eating highly palatable food that melts in your mouth. Even if you go to your local fast food restaurant, they inject the chicken with marinade, right? And this is to essentially pre-chew it to make it really, really soft. And because it's really soft, you eat more and your jaw doesn't get strong. So you can't stop. Okay. If we look back to the 1890s, you have the Kellogg's brothers, which you've obviously heard of Kellogg's. But John Kellogg was the original guy, right? And his idea was, let's invent a cereal or food that's really, really bland to stop your desires. So in other words, it's to stop you feeling urges. But his brother Will seen that, okay, people were not actually eating this food because it wasn't very tasty. So then he added sugar, right? And John was horrified because he thought, all right, you shouldn't be adding sugar to this because it's probably not very good for them. Then they found out that people couldn't stop eating it, right? And then this is how Kellogg's launched in 1906, because it's sugar sweetened cornflakes. And so in other words, he won that argument. And now, very cleverly, they put the word breakfast in front of cereal. Breakfast cereal. Right? But you never hear like breakfast steak or breakfast boiled potatoes. We've been conditioned to think, oh, that's it. That's how I start my day, eating this sugar sweetened corn. So we are ancient beings now running in an environment that is engineered against us. So we require eating food that has high in fiber, that takes time to chew, it takes effort to chew, and then that signals fullness in our belly. And that system works perfectly and has done for thousands of years. But now the bliss point has been engineered. So this is people in a lab. I'm not talking about farmers now. People in a factory lab looking at a food product, difference between food and food product. It's a product to see what is the perfect combination of salt, fat, and sugar that is irresistible. And this covers, so the salt covers the chemical taste, the fat helps the flavor to linger, and the sugar gets that rapid energy spike. So you want another one straight away afterwards, once you pop. And this ends up creating the baby food effect. So essentially, where these guys in labs, these scientists, are making food for adults the same way they make baby food. So it dissolves upon impact. The stomach doesn't really register it. So we keep on eating it and we eat way too many calories. Now, it all comes down to the money. So whenever there's an issue like this when it comes to health, follow the money. If you try to reduce cravability, so for example, Pepsi in 2010, they tried to market themselves around healthier products, but then Wall Street pushed back, right, because the stock dropped. And when companies are trying to make their products less rewarding, the market punishes them for that. The snack world deception. Now, I'm blue in the face chatting to my mum and my dad about this. My dad has high cholesterol, and my mum buys him Benecol yogurts, and Benecol this, Benecol that, Benecol spread, because it's as part of a balanced diet, it may help with cholesterol. Can you see the read between the lines there? But what someone reads of that generation is, doctors are always right. I must listen to authority. And why would they advertise as lies? And these are the same people that have been smoking cigarettes for 30 years. And, so they think, all right, low fat is good. High fiber is good. Low salt is good when it's on the front. Stop reading the front of food. Read the back. Read the ingredients. That's where the truth is, not what it's being marketed. Because they will take the fat out of a product and then put sugar in, because the fat is the taste. Eating fat doesn't make you fat. Sugar will, because it increases your calories, and too many calories equals weight gain. But you're given an illusion of choice. Like I said, 70% of America are overweight or obese, and the UK, Ireland, the rest of the Western world, we're close behind them. And that's because 70% of the food comes from ultra processed. Now, these then cause diet related diseases. And you think to yourself, well, I've got this healthy food, that healthy food, because it's in the health food section. When you go to the supermarket, you got fruit and veg and you got the meat aisle. That's all you need. And buy some seasoning and learn how to cook. But that way of being, that middle finger up to that system, is not going to help make the money. Because what the whole process is step one, create a problem, right? Ultra processed foods flame that desire within you. You can't help it. They give you that appetite, and they bypass the I'm full signal in your tummy. And then when you get to a stage where you just cannot stop and you become overweight, then they sell you the cure. Oh yeah, GLP-1. Let's take away that desire. Let's take away your appetite. Yes, your appetite for food, but your appetite for life, for your wife, for your work. This has been clearly documented, right? It's not the solution. I'm sorry. I know in the comment section, or people might be saying otherwise, that I did that, whatever. No, I disagree. Right? What world are we living in? So then people lose weight, and then what's normalized again? The third step is, let's upsell you. Now it's normalized that men take TRT. You're over 40, I've got to take my TRT. This is crazy to think this. You're injecting something in your ass every day because you haven't got the libido. You haven't got the zest for life. Crazy. I mean, TRT can be a real medicine for someone who absolutely needs it, but it's very rare. It's just an excuse. But once you start seeing that this is what it is, you're essentially caught in this subscription loop where it's like, right, I'm going to get the takeaways. Then I'm going to take the GLP-1s. And then I'm feeling down, so I'm going to inject this in me. The answer is within. But the corporate media want you placid. They want you constantly consuming mindlessly. And every time you do, you're saying to yourself subconsciously, I'm a victim. I just can't help it. This is just the way it is. It's the side effect of capitalism. And capitalism is good to a degree, but when it comes to our health and money being made off our urges, you need to see the wood through the trees. But discipline, being disciplined, feeling those urges and not giving in, that is the only way out. The excuse I hear the most is, oh, it's my genetics, it's my age, genetics load the gun, lifestyle pulls the trigger. Because it's been proven that you can not only obviously lose weight, lose fat, build muscle, but you can reverse sarcopenia. That is the muscle loss as we age. I'm so sick, and I'll include my mum and dad in this, and my mum saying like, I wouldn't be lifting weights at my age. Like, it's perverse, because it's been proven that you can actually reverse sarcopenia. You can build muscle at any age. What is guaranteed is that if you don't lift weights, you're going to decline rapidly. Now, I've talked about this before, but the surplus. We don't realize the food we're eating, the sneaky food, especially if you're a dad, right? It's been shown that resident dads put on more weight than men that are non-fathers, like childless fellas, right? And you might be thinking, oh, that's because of dads. No, it's because they're doing things like eating the kids' leftovers. Right? Oh, there's those crusts of the pizza. I'm not going to throw them in the bin. I'm going to eat all of them. Or them chicken nuggets. I'm not going to throw them away. I'm going to eat all of them. Now, I do that as well, but the difference is I'm very lean, high muscle, low fat. And when I do eat them, it's home cooked pizza. We don't eat chicken nuggets. My kids don't even know what McDonald's. Well, they've heard of McDonald's, but never been. They never drank Coke. I'm not flexing. Well, I am flexing a little bit, but showing off, that means. But I'm proud of that, because it shouldn't be the normal. And I remember when I was young, I used to say to my mum, it's not fair. Why can't we go to McDonald's? I won't say her name, but we used to call it, let's call her Laura. We used to go, Fat Laura goes to, sorry, that's bad. Fat Laura goes to McDonald's with her mum and sister. It's like, that was actually her nickname. It was just terrible. When I was in school, we had a lad in our year called Fat Dean. We just called him Fat Dean because he's only fat bloke in the year. And just shows you, like, we had one fat kid in our year, and I'm talking secondary school now. That's high school, but it just shows you now that it's like that's probably half the kids. Anyway, McDonald's is not a treat, but your kids are watching the World Cup, and they're like, "Oh, look at Ronaldo or whoever else. They're eating McDonald's. Oh, and you're watching it like, oh, look at Beckham, look at Ronaldinho. It reminds me when I was a kid growing up, and they're eating McDonald's." And although you know in your head that it's not correct, subconsciously it's getting in there. And you think, oh, McDonald's is a treat. Me and my son, we can bond, me and my daughter. Sick. Listen, I will guarantee you, right? Because you might listen to me think I'm an absolute lunatic. We will look back in 100 years and we will see the food industry for how we see the tobacco industry now. We will see it the same way. But you might watch this now and I plant a seed, right? But I want to keep going because I feel real passionate about this, as you can probably tell. You need to decide, are you a proactive or a reactive eater? Right? Because a reactive eater is someone who goes to a social event, who watches the game at home, and they're like, oh, I'm going to be sitting down now for the next 2 hours. I need some snacks. What have I got? Right? So whatever is in the house, you're going to consume. So that could be Doritos, it could be nuts. That could be Pringles, or it could be beef jerky. But the lean dad has pre-decided. He has the house stocked up with the good stuff, and he doesn't keep the good stuff in the house. And yes, the kids are going to have their tantrums, but we have to, it's another argument, but you have to separate yourself from the kids. Yes, you can enjoy an ice cream every now and again with the kids, but it shouldn't be your mechanism for feeling good. Otherwise, you are a victim to this. Now, when we talk about fat loss, as opposed to weight loss, we have to lift weights. If you just lose weight and you're like, I'm just going to start running, you know, I'll burn the fat off running, which was what I did. I looked like a bag of shit. I looked like I was at death's door. I went vegan as well. I went from being bloated, right, with belly podge and skinny arms, to just being frail looking because I just got into running. I thought, well, I'm not a bodybuilder. I don't want to look like a bodybuilder, so I won't lift weights. Fucking hell, so I wish someone told me otherwise. What the truth is, bodybuilders are on steroids. If it looks like it looks like a duck, sounds like a duck. It's a duck, whatever that expression is. But when you see a lean fella, like I will get comments sometimes. People say to me, "Where'd you put it all?" You know, I won't say who because I don't want to like throw anyone under the bus, but I will go out with family friends who are overweight, and they'll say to me, you know, that could be an eating event, social event where we're eating, and you know, I'm eating more than everyone else, but I'm eating high protein foods, right? And they'll be like, "Where'd you put it all?" They this, that, and the other. So, well, what you don't see is the days of the week where I'm strength training, right? Because when you've got muscle, that absorbs the calories. And when you don't have muscle and you're not practicing strength training, the body takes that energy in and stores it as fat. But you have to be willing to be boring. Like eating a similar meal every day. Beef, chicken, eggs, potatoes. You eat that, if that's 80% of your diet, you'd be lean as hell. And if you just went to the gym a few times a week and did strength training, not on the cardio machines. But we are stuck in this system of novelty because novelty sells. And this is like back to our mammalian brain. You know, when we're out in nature and we see something novel, it's normally valuable because it's rare. But now, novel food, hyper palatable, that has the salt, the sugar, and the fat mixed together, it's not rare. It's everywhere. So the antithesis of this is high protein, high fiber, high water. Like if advertising was actually truthful, it would say the World Cup 2026 brought to you by water, the only good drink, the giver of life. So be very aware of what you're handing down to the kids. This is not to guilt trip you, this is to make you conscious, because it's important not to demonize all foods, but to have balance. So certain things are off limits. In our house, it's McDonald's and Coca-Cola. But we also want to make sure that we are leading by example. So for example, I wouldn't get drunk in front of my kids, never been drunk in front of my kids. I want to demonstrate a level of control. So, for example, my wife will make cheesecake. I'll have my piece of cheesecake and I'll put the rest back. The kids, oh, Dad, we have more cheesecake. No, we'll have the rest. We'll have some tomorrow. Right? It has to be like that. Although I really want some more. Because we can say what we want to the blue in the face, but they are going to absorb our behaviors. And when you raise a child, as you know, that can delay gratification, is so much easier than some brat who just wants everything all the time. But you need to make sure that your home is the right environment, because we need to understand that willpower is not reliable. As James Clear says in Atomic Habits, you don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. So make that hyper palatable junk food out of reach, right? Add that friction. And set the standard. So you need to make sure that instead of being the dad who's end of the day, you just flop out on the couch, you have your beer, your wine, or your snacks, and you just watch the TV, zone out, or you watch the kids. No, get onto the floor and play with the kids. I know you're knackered. Like I said, my kids are 5, 4, and 2. I'm up at 4 a.m. It's full on, especially summer holidays. But the reason why we look after ourselves is our kids don't see us all day. And when they do, we want to make sure they feel that energy off us, that we're able to get down the floor, we're able to play with them because we fueled our body right the whole day. But every meal you have is a vote for your future and their future. It really is. I'm not being hyperbolic, because you can be Homer Simpson or you can be Bandit from Bluey, the dad. Right? He's really clever. He's a paleologist, is it? Digs up bones or whatever. And he's always playing games with them. He's not just like stupid. He's not a couch potato. And every time you eat, you are literally investing in your and their future, because the better you eat, the longer you'll be around for, statistically. But see the system for what it is. Overeating ultra-processed foods is not random. It's a predictable outcome, right? That has been optimized for generations directly at your brain. But once you see the system, you'll stop losing. So you have a choice. Now the choice is, do I continue with this? Do I become that consumer and allow myself to be on the apps to look at the commercials? Or do I escape the matrix? Take some self-ownership. Get some clarity. That's the first step. So you haven't done so already, do the scorecard. Link is below and in the pinned comment. Takes you a few minutes, 20 questions, and you'll get instant clarity. Be Bandit, don't be Homer.